FYP briefing, which is semi-official briefing. There will be an official briefing later before Sem 1 begins. This one is intended just for key points and key questions that you have, so that during Sem 3, you have enough time to read, to prepare your proposals, to do all the necessary things, and you don't delay everything until Sem 1. Okay? So if, let's say, you delay reading, you delay writing the FYP1, then preparing for it. That's why we are doing this now. And we are doing this now, not in the short Sem, because, you know, we might forget, might be hard to get everyone. Now everyone is in the mood to study, so we might as well do it now. And also maybe some lecturers or some students wouldn't be, like, they will feel shy, right? They will say, now this is a holiday time. I don't want to disturb my lecturer and ask them about my FYP choice and whatnot during the holidays. So now we will do it now. So if you have any questions, you still have 2 weeks, right, to speak to lecturers who are still on duty. So that's the great wisdom behind having this workshop now, to give you more time during the short Sem and to enable you to contact your lecturers freely in the time remaining in this semester, because yeah, we still have the exams, so you still have plenty of time when everyone is working. You are working and the lecturers are working. I wouldn't be talking so much. I will be leaving it mostly to your questions, your inquiries, because I don't want to speak so much on things that are not relevant to you at this point. So we'll leave it to mostly for Q&As. So this might be a very short session. It depends on you. The things that I want to say mostly are related to the choice of topic and the choice of supervisors. That's mostly what I want to talk about today. And any information that I tell you now, you can relay it to the others, to your friends. Don't think there'll be another briefing until the official briefing in Sem 1 or just before Sem 1. So how about the choice of topic? Previously, the practice was, in last year and the year before it, is that students will approach the supervisors with specific topics. Let's say Zahira wants to write about the poetry of T.S. Eliot about Muslims, the representation of Muslims in the poetry of T.S. Eliot. So she would look at the list of interest for lecturers. So there is a list. Each lecturer provided what areas they are interested in. Let's say I'm interested in American poetry. I'm interested in Islamic literature. So she would find, okay, this lecturer, Humam, is interested in this. Maybe also Dr. Madiha is teaching this. But Dr. Maimuna is not interested in teaching poetry, right? So she would know who to approach. So she would email the potential supervisor, okay, she emailed me, let's say I want to write about the representation of Muslims in the poems of T.S. Eliot. Then I would reply, maybe not T.S. Eliot, maybe find another poem, another poet, and talk about the representation of Muslims in the poetry of Emily Dickinson, for example. Because of these reasons, because I don't like T.S. Eliot, because he didn't write about Muslims, because of whatever reason, right? So it becomes a discussion between the student and supervisor. Then I will say, yes, now you can join my section as for FYP1. That was the practice. This time around, some lecturers are gonna give topics, specific titles. Some lecturers have already specific topics in their minds, and we will share all that later with you. So some lecturers have specific titles. So I have, let's say, 8 titles. I'm gonna list them and then you can choose. Some lecturers have general topics just like last year. So I'm interested in Muslim poetry. I'm interested in American drama in the 20th century. So general topics of interest. Some lecturers have something in the middle. Hmm? Like it's not very general, but it's not also topics. So that's why I'm here today to tell you that approach your potential supervisors and see what they want. Hmm? Don't delay it. Maybe you think that this specific lecturer that you want to supervise you will accept your proposal, and then you delay it until the beginning of the semester, and then you speak to them, and then you will find that oops, they have specific topics or titles that really don't interest me. Some students don't do well with assigned titles. It happened this year. Some supervisors, they asked the students to do specific titles. Then the students, they couldn't deal with it because they had no interest in those titles. So I'm saying it's not too early to approach lecturers. That's the key point. For me, I spoke to some students and I told them that this is the area that I'm interested in. Mm? So if you want, you can join my section, or you can, find others who are more interested. They told me I want to do this movie or I want to do this novel. Then I told them this is the area that I'm interested in. However, if all of the students in my section decide to shift to another area all together, then I'll be fine with it. So in my case, in my specific case, I want all the students in my section to be focusing on one area. Let's say it's Victorian poetry. Let's say it's the poetry of Rumi. Let's say it's the drama in Renaissance drama, whatever it is, as long as they are working together as a team. Because I found that many students, struggle on their own. Hmm? Let's say in my section this year, I have one student talking about Mexican poetry, the other one talking about fairy tales, the other one talking about Muslim literature. So they can't help each other out. They are working in silos. So I want next semester that they can help each other, just like when you take, a regular course, you can have groups, right? So in my case, I want all my students to decide on a certain area of interest that is good for me and good for them. Let's say I'm not, like, for real, I'm not an expert in Singaporean and Malaysian literature. So I can't have all my students doing, for that purpose, go and speak to Dr. Aisha, Dr. Madiha, right? So I told the students, maybe let's do archetypal criticism in English literature, because it seems that students find it relatively easier than other types of criticism. So that's what I told my potential supervisees. I can't release now the list of interests of the lecturers because it's still in work in progress. Later we will release it. Each lecturer, what they are interested in, whether it's topic, whether it's titles. But you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait for that. So the general assumption is that you can. There is a general assumption among some after what we exchange, after the messages we exchange on WhatsApp. I noticed that there is some assumption that students now can sit and relax, and wait for specific titles to be assigned by the supervisors. This is not true. You still need to work and find the topic that interests you and your supervisor. So it's still, in most cases, finding the topic. Most lecturers are not giving specific titles. The overwhelming majority is not giving specific titles. The majority is giving areas, general areas. So you need to approach the lecturers and speak to them, and then come up with your own title. Based on my experience, it's never too early to have a title or two in your mind and to start reading. Because students find it difficult, to analyze works, to do the surveys, to write a proposal. So it's never too early to start your FYP preparations. So finish your exams and start reading, but communicate with your lecturers as soon as you can. So that's about the choice. Let me tell you something now in very general about FYP. What is FYP? FYP is considered as the culmination of all your studies. So it's a final year project that sums up all the wonderful things that you have learned throughout the years, and it shows how much of a good researcher and academic you have become after 3 or 4 years in the department. So it it is the crowning jewel of your academic work. It's the summary, the conclusion of the 4 years you spent at IIUM. That's why it's a bit, for some it's a bit more demanding than other courses. So it extends over 2 semesters, FYP1 and FYP2, SEM1 and SEM2. If God forbid you fail, you can't take it in SEM3. So you fail in SEM1, then you go to SEM2, and then you jump to the following year. Okay, so it can be really annoying if you fail your FYP, because it means you have to wait the short SEM and then the whole of long one on your FYP. So general advice is avoid failing in your FYP. So what is this FYP that is causing so much stress? It is actually only around 30 or 40 pages. Hmm? The whole year. All you have to do is to write around 40 pages or less, divided into FYP1 and FYP2. FYP1 and FYP2. So around 20 pages or less in SEM 1, then 20 pages or less in semester 2. So it's one thesis, one project. Let's say one of my students wrote about the use of curse words among IIUM students. She was doing linguistics, something around that. For literature, what's one of the topics in literature? Last year, they all escaped me. This year, we have the topic of archetypal analysis of fairy tales, Grimm's fairy tales, one or two fairy tales, and that's it. Another topic is the analysis of Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist. You know this bestseller? So, examining spirituality in Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist. So, 40 pages on this or that or that. That's the whole FYP, 1 and 2. So, SEM 1 includes the introduction plus literature review and the methodology. This is true for both linguistics and literature. It's the same. How you do the chapters is different, but that's not the matter for to discuss now. But it's basically FYP1 is around 20 pages or less, where you talk about introduction, literature review, and methodology. FYP2 is analysis and conclusion. Okay, it's clear? So all of it together is around 40 pages. After 1 year, after 2 semesters, it's going to be around 40 pages of research. If you're familiar with writing for journals, it looks very much like a journal article or a master's thesis, but the scale, the scope, the depth is less. That's the FYP in a nutshell. For linguistics, it's FYP1 is 3 chapters. Introduction, which has usually it has the background of the study, it has the statement of problem, it has the objectives, it has the research questions. Hmm? That's chapter 1. Then you move to chapter 2, which is literature review. So you look at previous studies on the same topic, how it is done, what did they study. So you mention all those. And then in chapter 3, you move to the methodology. Which methodology? You're gonna do qualitative, you're gonna do quantitative, you're gonna do survey, you're gonna do interviews, you're gonna use Atlas with software to analyze, etc., etc. That's the methodology. So 3 chapters, each chapter is 30 grades, 30 marks in the rubric. Then you have an extra 10 for format and language. That's FYP1 linguistics. I think we have more linguistics lecturer and more linguistics students for FYP than literature, but I'm not sure, but I think so this year. Then for literature, it is divided into 2 chapters. Chapter 1 is the introduction, which also has the objectives, the research questions, the statement of problem, the background of the study, all those things. That's chapter 1. Then we have the big chapter 2. Most of it is literature review, what other studies were done about your topic. Most of it is literature review, and at the end of it, there is a short methodology because literature doesn't focus so much on methodology like linguistics. So chapter 1 will be 30 marks, chapter 2 will be 60 marks for literature. Then you have language and format for around 10 marks. That is the FYP in a nutshell. So we are here today because I want you to start thinking early about your FYP and talking to lecturers, and I don't want you to assume that you're going to be given titles even if your luck, your destiny brought you to a supervisor that will give you titles. You need to read about those. Now, let's say I'm giving specific titles, right? I might give you something that you have no idea about, right? And you end up with me. It happens to some students. Everyone goes to they choose. Most of the students choose their supervisors, agreements reached, done. Then you will have 10 students who are without supervisors. It happens every year. Then what will happen to these students? We will find slots for them. Let's say I have a slot to students. The other lecturer, Dr. Aisha, Dr. Adlina has a slot. So we will distribute these students who have no supervisors, right? So you might end up with a lecturer who will give you the title, even if that's not your intention now. So be active and reach an agreement with the lecturers. Even if your lecturer is gonna give you the title, you're gonna need to read about it early on. If it is your own choice, you're choosing the title, then you need to know about it because you're going to email the lecturer and tell them why you are interested in this and what is the topic about, right? So in both scenarios, you need to do the early work. I think that's what I wanted to highlight for this FYP session. And it might sound too early or not so important, but based on experience, my experience and the feedback from my students, it is very crucial to choose a topic that interests you, to choose a supervisor that you can work with, to choose a topic that is suitable, that can actually be research. That's why it's never too early to think of these things and communicate with the lecturers. Okay, so thank you for listening. We can now open for questions or feedback. Feel free to express any thoughts or ask any questions that you wish.
Sam, can I go first?
Go ahead.
Sam alaikum, Doctor. First of all, thank you for the briefing. I have two questions. First, last semester it so happened that a lot of people, I'm not sure, were late to apply and stuff, and then ended up getting linguistic professors when they were literature majors and such. So my question is how to avoid that. First question, and the second, would you like to answer first, or should I go with the second?
The answer to the first one is do it early. Do it early, especially if let's be honest. I mean, I you know it and I know it. Some lecturers are quickly booked, right? Like even their sections when the subject is taught, like you find that this lecturer the section is immediately filled. The other lecturer, it's not as easily filled as the other lecturer. So some of you, for some reason, like certain lecturers more than others, so they want to spend the year of FYP with those lecturers. So if you think that your potential supervisor is very popular, I think you need to address that issue quickly, right? Otherwise, you'll be left without a supervisor. Like some students, they approach the supervisor early. Let's say they email me and they say, I want to write about this novel. Then I will say, I will take some time to reply. I will reply after 3 or 4 days saying, I'm sorry, but this topic doesn't interest me at all. Speak to another lecturer. Then Sadia will go and email another lecturer. The lecturer will take 2 3 days, let's say, and then replies saying, I'm full, I'm already booked. So a week has passed. Now she goes around and everyone is booked, and she end up with a linguistics lecturer. That's the only slot now available. So it can happen theoretically. It can happen. So speak early to the supervisors. That's the best way to avoid ending up with a supervisor from different specialization, or a supervisor who will give you a topic that you are not very much interested in.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. My second question is if my research topic or what I'm interested in is something that multiple professors are interested in as their research interests, would you suggest that I approach with, for example, if I have sort of a proposal or I've written down my ideas, should I email all of them to all of the professors, or just reach out to a few, or reach out to just one that I want? Because so it happens. Okay, what if multiple professors are like, okay, I like the topic, then what?
Don't go and approach more than one, because it's gonna put you in a weird place, right? Then the lecturers will talk, and then they will say the student is cherry picking, and then they'll put an X next to your name. Let's say you email me, you email Dr. Madiha and Dr. Aisha, and then we all say yes, and then you will have to apologize to the other two. Then I will meet them and I will say, this student asked me for a topic and then said she's not interested. Now she says that she's taking it with you. Then Aisha will say, okay, yeah, she emailed me. And then we will be saying that this student is cherry picking and shouldn't be doing like that. You only approach one. So don't, mm, from practice, don't approach more than one lecturer. Go one by one.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Welcome. Other questions?
Assalamualaikum, Doctor. I have a question. Would it be wise to have multiple topics prepared just in case?
Definitely, yes, definitely. So when you email a lecturer, you email more than one topic. Then they will ask you for an abstract, something like a page where you detail, because it's not enough, right? They want to see if you know what you are going for. So they'll ask you for an abstract. Let's say you want to talk about spirituality in the poetry of Rumi or Muslim representations in the works of Shakespeare. So they ask you, okay, what do you mean by that? Send me the abstract for this specific title. So yeah, it's better to have more than one topic in mind. In case one is rejected, you can immediately shift to the other and not spend time waiting to come up with something new.
Would making an abstract for all the topics be too much work then?
It depends on you. For some, it is. For some, coming up with one abstract is too much work because you're going to list in the abstract the objectives, the methodology, right? What are the expected outcomes?
All
If
right.
it is easy for you, you can do it.
Okay.
Okay. What else? Any other questions? Go ahead. Questions or thoughts?
Hi, Doctor. I have a question.
Mhm.
What leads to a failure in RFYP?
What leads to failure in the FYP?
Yep.
Getting less than 50 grades, 50 marks.
Okay.
Many things can lead to failure in FYP, but I think the main reason will be delaying, procrastinating, maybe. Because let's say you're taking stylistics or you're taking lit crit, you will have a presentation on a certain date. Then you will have an exam on a certain date. Then an article submission on a certain date, right? For FYP, it doesn't have these clear-cut assignments. One is presentation, one is you're gonna work on one paper. So students tend to delay the work on the presentation until the final day before the presentation, right? Then they delay the work on the article submission until the day of the submission itself. Then they will delay the studying for the exam until the exam. So we have this practice of pushing ourselves until the deadline, and then fighting with our group members and whatnot. And also relying on others to do the work for us in groups. In FYP, there are no groups, and there are no piecemeal retail assignments. It's one FYP. So the tendency to delay everything is there. And the expectations for grading are higher because this is FYP. So when you delay a regular assignment and then you do it in one day, it's usually not going to be 20 pages, right? And usually you have other group members. So you are actually delaying like writing 3 pages or 4 pages. So you manage to do it in a day or two when you delay. Here what happens is that students delay writing for the FYP. Delay it, delay it, delay it. Then they find, oh, I have to write so much and it has to be so deep because this is FYP and there is a methodology to follow. And then I don't have any group members to help me out with it. I'm on my own. Then they end up either not submitting the thing, missing the work, or doing a very bad job at it. So I think that's the major reason. Also stress by some students. They keep thinking FYP, FYP, I'm not familiar with it, I'm not familiar with it. So they have this internal monologue that is not helpful, which I think you need to avoid at all costs. And then they burn themselves out due to stress. So procrastinating, stressing for no reason, not working closely with the supervisor, because you need to work closely with the supervisor, at least meet them every week. I have some of my students, FYP students, camping in my office. I just wish sometimes they would leave me alone for 5 minutes, but you will find them stuck in my room. I will go to classes and come back, and they are still in my office doing their FYP here. So you need to work closely with your supervisor and not create barriers between you and your supervisor. Some students think that, the supervisor is the judge. So I cannot really ask them or rely on them because they will grade me. The supervisor is to give you advice, to help you to. So when you don't write, you don't have anyone else to run to. So the students will be running away from the supervisors when they don't write or they think they are doing a bad job. The truth is that they should run to the supervisor when they are not doing a good job. That's when the supervisor is needed. So that's another issue, not understanding how to work closely with the supervisor. So procrastination, stress, not working with the supervisor, and also the bad choice of a topic or a title. You choose something that's not suitable, something that is maybe you find boring later because it's going to be 1 year of work. So you need to be careful when you are choosing the topic and discuss it with this potential supervisor and see that both of you like the topic. So these are just 4 reasons of the top of my head. I think there are more. There are videos made by some of my students about their FYP experience. So what are the, challenges they faced, and what are the good things that you can, the good practices that you can follow. So I think Elits can help and share these videos. So I will coordinate. Zahira, if you can, you're in the Mahalla, right? Or you're in HS?
I'm at Mahala.
Okay, so later you can take them by USB and then
Yeah.
share them now through your channels with the students, these videos.
All right.
So excited. So
Assalamualaikum, Doctor.
go ahead.
I just want to ask, if we approach a certain supervisor, the first approach, we doesn't need that abstract and everything. That we just need to tell what topic are we interested in, or do we need to provide the abstract on the first approach?
It's better to have a good idea about what you want. It's better. It's better to have, and it's gonna be different. For me, I don't want that. If you're gonna email me or talk to me for the first time, I don't expect an abstract from you. But maybe there are other lecturers who would like you to have a good idea before approaching them. Otherwise, they would think, okay, if you don't know what the thing is about, right? Then why are you suggesting it? Why are you talking to me now if you don't really know? So it's gonna depend on the lecturer. As a precaution, it's better to have a good idea about the title that interests you, about the topic that interests you, then approaching the lecturer. At least half a page, like half a page of what you want to do. Make sure it's something that is not very obvious, so something that hasn't been like studied a zillion times before, right? So just remember that it hasn't been done before. Just Google it also quickly, see that it's not the same thing that has been done before.
Doctor, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Is it possible to, like, if I am interested in a topic but I didn't take the subject yet, like I will take the subject next semester, but I'm interested to the topic. Like, let's say I want to do something with Malaysian literature, but I haven't take the subject yet, or it will be hard for me.
Okay, let me ask the panel of experts in my room first. What do you think?
FYP2 lah. Or
Say it out loud.
I mean, it's better if you have the initial idea of what you want to do, and if you haven't taken MSL, it's okay. I think at least finish it before you get into FYP2. I guess that's where the analysis comes, because FYP1 it's just technical things, but you do need to have the basic idea of what you're gonna do.
Similar to what the other sister said just now. Yeah,
Oh,
just make sure that you finish taking the course before you continue with FYP2.
okay, so both these FYP students, case in point, they are here. So both students think that you don't need to take the subject before starting your FYP1. I think it's true. It's not a prerequisite, right? Because you might take the whole subject and not touch upon your, let's say you want to study Rumi in your FYP. So you might take ISLET and the whole course doesn't touch upon Rumi, right?
Thank you,
So
Doctor.
yep, welcome.
Assalamualaikum, Doctor. May I know, after we have done our FYP2, do we have to present our work to our supervisor?
You mean presentation where you have like slides and
Yeah.
so far no presentation.
Okay, Doctor. Thank you.
Welcome. Go ahead. Any questions or comments? Feel free to ask.
Doctor,
Hmm.
is it possible to get full marks for the FYP?
Is it possible? It's graded like other subjects, so you can get the whole range. Last sem FYP1 I supervised 8. I think 5 got A. Out of the 8, 5 got A. So yeah, some students get A, some students fail, some students just like other subjects. What else?
Doctor,
Saleh?
I have a question. What is the general time frame or key event that we need to aware throughout the FYP, and also roughly how many students per lecturer that they will supervise?
Okay, it's gonna depend on the number of students and the number of staff available. So there is no fixed rule for the numbers, because last sem we had a lecturer who was about to deliver a baby, so she did not supervise, then she came back, right? You have lecturers retiring, so the number of lecturers is not the same. every year, and the students also, the number of students that differs from batch to batch. This year we have 8 or more per supervisor. So I have 8 students in my section. Some other lecturers have 9 or 10. So that's the range, around 8 for this year. Next year, I'm not sure which batch has more students, 1-9 or 1-8. So around 8 per supervisor maybe. And the dates are gonna be set by your supervisors. The important dates that you need to be aware of are gonna be set by the supervisor. Generally, the guidelines said submit everything before or on week 14. That's the general guideline, but the specifics of those and the flexibility of those dates and the, the smaller milestones, that differs from a lecturer to a lecturer. Any other questions or comments? Any questions or comments? Feel free to ask. Okay, so I think no more question. I pass the mic to Kaza.
All right. So, thank you so much, Doctor, for your insightful talk. Reminder for all the students, please fill in the attendance form. But before we end, all right. So I think okay right now. So Sister Shafika, please screenshot this later, right? So 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Just smile and then we'll just screenshot it later. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you for organizing this.
All right, no problem. Thank you too, Doctor.
Thank you.
So,
Assalamu alaikum.
all right. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.